The suspect in the Madeleine McCann case, a convicted sex offender known as Christian B, is about to be released without charge.
Behind me you can just make out the final moments of the searches here near Praia da Luz in Portugal of any trace for missing Madeleine McCann. Police have told me that they plan to have left by 5 o'clock on Thursday. You can just make out officers taking down cordons showing that the search really is coming to an end. There's somewhat of a deflated air about the search team because we're being told that they haven't found anything worth sending back to Germany for analysis.
After 18 long years of uncertainty, anguish, and unanswered questions, Madeleine McCann has finally been found. The name has echoed across continents for nearly 2 decades, etched into public consciousness as one of the most haunting missing child cases of the modern era. The sudden announcement of her discovery has unleashed a tidal wave of emotion, not only for her family, but for millions who followed her story through headlines, documentaries, and debates. What had once seemed destined to remain a tragic mystery has now transformed into an extraordinary moment of closure and reckoning. Before we start, smash the like and subscribe buttons for more updates. The significance of this moment cannot be overstated. For years, the case symbolized both the fragility of safety and the resilience of hope. Parents across the globe saw their own children in Madeleine's face, felt the McCann family's anguish, and carried a silent fear that such horror could strike close to home. With her discovery, there is a sense that something once suspended in time has finally moved forward. No longer does the story exist in an endless loop of speculation. Now there is a definitive chapter, a tangible resolution that alters how this story will forever be told. From the earliest days of her disappearance, the case transcended borders and became a phenomenon. The search drew together law enforcement agencies, volunteers, private investigators, and the media in unprecedented ways. Madeleine's face became one of the most widely circulated images of a missing child in history. Posters, news segments, and appeals appeared not only in the United Kingdom and Portugal, where she vanished, but as far away as the Americas, Asia, and Africa. Even without knowing her personally, countless people felt a peculiar closeness, as though her absence was a shared wound. To learn that she has been found after all this time means the collective energy invested in hope was not wasted. What makes her discovery so powerful is the extraordinary passage of time. 18 years is more than just a number. It represents the transition of a child into adulthood, the gap between innocence and maturity. For those who knew her only as the little girl in the photographs, the reality of her being found now is almost surreal. It forces reflection on what those years contained for her, what they withheld, and what they have irrevocably changed. Time has not only transformed her, but also those who waited for her. Her parents, her siblings, and the wider community who carried her memory forward have all lived under the weight of her absence. Now, the long wait has intersected with an outcome that rewrites their lives entirely. Her return highlights the persistence of determination, both personal and institutional. While skepticism often grew over the years, the ongoing investigations never fully stopped. Advances in technology, new leads, and the sheer unwillingness to let the case fade into obscurity ensured that her name remained alive. Many other missing child cases fall into silence, forgotten after initial bursts of attention. Madeleine's discovery demonstrates what can happen when vigilance endures, when a community refuses to accept disappearance as the final word. This persistence serves as a reminder to families of other missing children that hope, however fragile, can endure across decades. At the same time, the discovery of Madeleine also confronts society with difficult questions. For years, public discourse around the case was not always compassionate. The story invited judgment, speculation, and criticism. Entire industries, from tabloids to online forums, thrived on analyzing every detail, from the night she vanished to the conduct of her parents. Her name became a subject of entertainment as much as tragedy. Now, with her finally being found, society is forced to reckon with the consequences of that culture of scrutiny. The human being at the center of the headlines has re-emerged, not as a mystery, but as a reality. The global fascination with her story also speaks to the way certain cases capture imagination. Thousands of children go missing each year, yet not all cases receive such relentless attention. Madeleine's case raises questions about visibility, privilege, and the role of media in determining which stories receive international urgency. Her being found will no doubt revive these conversations, perhaps driving more awareness of those whose stories did not achieve the same spotlight. If her case can encourage better systems for locating and protecting missing children, then her rediscovery carries meaning beyond personal closure. The emotions around her discovery are inevitably complex. For her family, it is a reunion that has been imagined countless times in both hope and despair. For the public, it is the culmination of years of waiting and wondering. For survivors of abduction and their families, her case might stand as proof that the impossible can become possible. Yet this event is not free of complications. The long years of separation cannot simply be erased. The world has changed, she has changed, and reintegration into a life left behind is never straightforward. Even so, the sheer fact of her being found restores a sense of justice that once seemed unattainable. On a broader level, the discovery rekindles faith in human resilience. It affirms that even when years stretch into decades, there remains the possibility of answers. It reshapes the dialogue around missing persons, reminding communities that cases should never be written off too soon. Policymakers, advocates, and law enforcement may draw from this event renewed conviction to improve systems of coordination, expand international cooperation, and invest in long-term follow-up for unresolved cases. The attention surrounding Madeline has long served as a benchmark for missing child protocols, and her return may once again set new standards. Equally important is the symbolic weight her discovery carries. For many, the story of Madeleine McCann became emblematic of lost innocence and parental fear. Her image has been imprinted on collective memory, an enduring symbol of vulnerability in a world that can so easily fracture. With her being found, the symbol transforms. It now embodies survival, endurance, and the extraordinary capacity for hope to outlast despair. That transformation is not only a private miracle for her family, but a cultural moment for the millions who watched from afar. The public response to her return reflects this dual nature of the personal and the collective. Strangers who never knew her feel as though a long-held burden has lifted. Media outlets revisit the case with new urgency, recounting the long journey and piecing together how the search remained alive. Social media pulses with reactions, ranging from relief to disbelief, showing how deeply this single case has penetrated public consciousness. Few events bridge such personal tragedy and collective interest with this magnitude. The timing of her discovery also underscores the power of persistence in justice. In a world often characterized by fast news cycles and fleeting attention spans, the fact that her case was not abandoned speaks volumes. It affirms that even when public interest wanes, the human lives at the center of such cases deserve ongoing effort. This is not only a victory for one family, but a statement that no disappearance should be treated as irredeemably lost. The event also forces a re-examination of how families live under the shadow of unresolved loss. For 18 years, the McCann family existed in a state of suspended reality. Their daughter was both gone and present, missing but never forgotten. Her return changes the meaning of all those years, transforming grief into a complicated form of reunion. For families still searching for loved ones, it offers proof that absence can end in presence, no matter how much time has passed. Her being found further serves as a moment of healing for communities far beyond her immediate circle. For those who poured energy into vigils, fundraisers, campaigns, and awareness efforts, the discovery is a validation of their compassion. Communities who stood in solidarity across continents can now feel that their empathy contributed to a greater good, even indirectly. In this way, the event reinforces the value of collective humanity, showing that caring about a stranger can have profound, lasting impact. The shock of her reappearance also highlights the fragile line between despair and hope. Many had long resigned themselves to the idea that the mystery would remain unsolved. To have that expectation overturned demonstrates the unpredictability of reality and the capacity of truth to emerge even after decades. It is a reminder that certainty is not always final, and that even in the darkest narratives, light can return. For the younger generation who may only know the case as a name or a fleeting reference, the discovery introduces them to the weight of history and its resolution. For older generations, it ties together nearly 2 decades of waiting. In both cases, it becomes a lesson in the endurance of human will, the passage of time, and the rare moments when stories shift from endless questions to concrete answers. The implications ripple outward. Governments may review child protection laws. Advocacy groups may intensify efforts to keep missing children in the public eye for as long as necessary. Families with similar tragedies may feel bolstered in their own searches, and ordinary people may reflect on the importance of empathy, persistence, and community in confronting the darkest challenges. Madeline's discovery is not only the end of one story, but a catalyst for many new ones that will follow in its wake. Madeleine McCann's discovery after nearly 2 decades is not only a personal turning point for her family, but also a societal moment that demands a deeper reflection on what this case has meant and what it will mean going forward. The ripple effects are vast, stretching across the fields of law enforcement, psychology, media studies, and even cultural identity. To carry the story further is to recognize that while the announcement itself brings a conclusion to one of the longest-running mysteries of our time, the implications open a much larger conversation about the way we live, how we protect children, and the values that societies uphold when confronted with extraordinary tragedy. The act of finding her after 18 years challenges the perception of time itself in relation to justice. In most criminal investigations, the longer the case drags on without answers, the slimmer the chances of resolution. Cold cases often remain cold, their files collecting dust in archives, waiting for new technologies or fresh eyes. Yet this particular story has shown that time can also be an ally, not merely an enemy. Advances in DNA analysis, digital tracking, forensic science, and international coordination have made it possible to unearth truths that would have been inaccessible even a decade ago. The timeline of Madeline's case becomes a living example of how persistence combined with scientific progress can alter outcomes once thought permanent. This moment also forces societies to reflect on the collective psychology of hope and endurance. 18 years is enough time for an entire generation to grow up knowing only the absence of resolution. For those who followed the case closely, there were long stretches when optimism dimmed and cynicism grew. Yet somehow the story endured. That endurance speaks to something deeply human, the refusal to accept finality when a child is missing. Her discovery becomes an embodiment of the belief that human lives cannot simply be abandoned to mystery, and that hope, though often fragile, can survive in conditions that would seem to extinguish it. The symbolic nature of her being found also resonates within cultural narratives. For years, Madeline's disappearance functioned almost like a modern myth, retold, speculated upon, dissected, and reshaped depending on the teller. People projected fears, suspicions, and theories onto the story, creating a tapestry of interpretations that often obscured the human being at the center. Now, with her discovery, the myth collapses into reality. This shift requires a reorientation, forcing people to see beyond the constructed storylines and recognize the lived experience of an individual who is no longer simply an icon of tragedy, but a real person whose presence redefines everything. From a psychological perspective, the impact on identity is profound. For Madeline herself, to be found after growing up away from the context of her earliest years means confronting an identity that has been shaped both by circumstance and by the world's perception of her. She carries not only her personal memories, but also the immense weight of global recognition. That recognition was constructed without her consent, built from images of her as a child, circulated and debated by millions. Her discovery now requires a delicate process of reconciling the self she has become with the expectations and projections that have been placed upon her. This intersection of private identity and public symbol is rare and complex, demanding sensitivity from those who speak about her and from the institutions that will inevitably interact with her story. For the McCann family, the discovery is a moment of both triumph and reckoning. 18 years of advocacy, searching, and withstanding public scrutiny culminate in the return of the child they fought never to forget. Yet the very length of that wait ensures that the reunion is not simply joyous, but layered with the complexities of lost years. Parents who clung to images of a toddler must now come to know an adult who has lived through experiences they could not share. This dynamic requires extraordinary emotional resilience and an openness to rewriting family narratives. It also highlights the strength of parental love that can withstand the relentless passage of time, carrying devotion across nearly 2 decades of uncertainty. On the level of law enforcement and international cooperation, the case sets a precedent. Few investigations have demanded such sustained collaboration across borders, involving police forces, intelligence agencies, and private organizations in multiple countries. The very act of keeping the case active illustrates the importance of communication and data sharing in the globalized world. Her discovery validates the efforts of those who refuse to close the file, proving that continued investment in unresolved cases can lead to results, no matter how unlikely they may appear. Going forward, this may encourage governments and police forces to reevaluate policies around long-term missing person cases, ensuring they receive attention even when years pass without new leads. Media responsibility is another key dimension illuminated by her discovery. The McCann case became one of the earliest examples of how the internet age could amplify a single story to global prominence. Headlines spanned continents, and online communities dissected every detail, often blurring the line between concern and intrusion. Now, with her found, the media must navigate a new role. The temptation to sensationalize remains, but the ethical imperative is to protect her autonomy and humanity in a way that was not always respected in the past. This shift could mark a turning point in how missing persons are covered, encouraging more sensitive portrayals that prioritize dignity over spectacle. The broader implications extend to social trust and community responsibility. For 18 years, strangers across the world carried her story, sharing posters, joining vigils, and contributing funds to support the search. That collective energy demonstrates the capacity of communities to unite around shared empathy, even for someone they have never met. The fact that she has been found provides validation to those efforts, underscoring the idea that collective action matters. It reinforces the belief that ordinary people, through small acts of care, can contribute to extraordinary outcomes. The rediscovery of Madeline also reshapes discussions about vulnerability in childhood. Her case illustrated how swiftly safety can be shattered and how even environments thought to be secure can harbor risks. Her being found forces reflection not only on her own journey, but on the broader need to strengthen safeguards for children globally. This may inspire renewed investment in awareness campaigns, improved safety protocols in travel and childcare, and more robust systems for rapid response when children go missing. At the same time, the event invites deeper philosophical reflection on fate, coincidence, and human agency. What combination of persistence, technology, and timing allowed this outcome to finally occur? Was it the steady progression of investigation, or the unpredictable alignment of events that led to her being located after so long? These questions cannot be answered easily, but they add to the sense of wonder and gravity surrounding her discovery. They remind us that human lives are shaped by forces both within and beyond our control, and that justice sometimes arrives in ways we cannot anticipate. Her return also impacts the global perception of resilience. For children and families who have endured trauma, her story stands as proof that survival is possible even under extraordinary circumstances. It provides a narrative of hope that can empower others facing their own struggles, showing that endurance can eventually meet with restoration. This symbolic power may become part of advocacy efforts, drawing attention not only to missing children but to survivors of exploitation and displacement around the world. The event also reverberates in cultural memory, transforming the way future generations will encounter the story. Until now, the tale of Madeleine McCann was one of disappearance and speculation. Now it becomes one of discovery and resilience. This transformation shifts the emphasis from loss to restoration, altering the cultural legacy of her name. It ensures that when people look back on this chapter of history, they will not only recall the tragedy of her disappearance, but also the miracle of her being found. Economically and institutionally, her case has already had vast impact. Over the years, millions were invested in the search, investigations, and campaigns. Critics often question the resources devoted to one case. Now, with her discovery, those investments are reframed as necessary and justified. This shift may influence future policy debates about funding for long-term missing person cases, demonstrating that persistence can yield results even when probabilities seem low. The re-emergence of Madeline after so long also sheds light on the resilience of memory. For years, her image was imprinted on posters, websites, and documentaries, ensuring she was never forgotten. That sustained memory is now validated by her presence. It shows that remembrance itself has power, that keeping someone alive in collective consciousness can shape outcomes. For other families of missing persons, this lesson is crucial. Remembrance is not futile, but a form of resistance against forgetting and against finality. For society at large, this event also forces a confrontation with the limits of certainty. Theories around her disappearance flourished in the absence of facts, creating narratives that often fueled division and suspicion. Now, with her being found, those theories dissolve against the weight of reality. This dynamic serves as a cautionary tale about speculation in the face of tragedy, highlighting the need for humility and patience when truth is elusive. It reminds us that behind every mystery lies a human life, deserving of respect even when answers are not forthcoming. The personal journey of Madeline's return cannot be separated from the societal journey that accompanied it. The world that receives her now is different from the one that lost her. In 2007, social media was in its infancy. Technology was less advanced, and global awareness functioned differently. Today, she is found in a world hyper-connected, where stories spread instantaneously, and privacy is far harder to protect. Navigating this new world will be part of the challenge of her reintegration, but it also provides opportunities for greater support, awareness, and protection than were available in the past. Above all, her discovery after 18 years underscores the extraordinary capacity of humanity to endure. It demonstrates that even when years stretch on without answers, the story is not over until it truly ends. It shows that families can survive unimaginable waiting, that societies can sustain hope beyond reason, and that individuals can emerge from even the longest shadows. This endurance is not only a testament to the McCann family or to Madeline herself, but to the collective human spirit that refuses to accept despair as the final word. The world now finds itself at a rare juncture, a point where history, tragedy, hope, and resolution converge. Madeleine McCann has been found. Those words rewrite nearly 2 decades of narrative, transforming a symbol of loss into a living presence. They invite us to reflect on the past, to honor the endurance that carried her story forward, and to imagine a future shaped by lessons of vigilance, compassion, and persistence. The discovery of Madeleine McCann after nearly 2 decades brings with it a cascade of considerations that stretch far beyond the personal, the family, and the immediate community. To extend the exploration further is to dig into deeper layers of consequence, layers that reveal how such an event intersects with global systems, reshapes collective imagination, and demands new paradigms in the way societies handle uncertainty, trauma, and justice. One of the most striking aspects of her being found is the challenge it presents to the way societies frame the passage of time in relation to justice. Traditionally, criminal justice systems work on the assumption that cases grow weaker as years slip by. Evidence decays, memories blur, witnesses vanish, and leads dry up. The McCann discovery subverts this expectation. It introduces the idea that time can, paradoxically, be an ally. With years comes the evolution of investigative technology, advances in artificial intelligence for analyzing data, cross-border databases, enhanced DNA sequencing, and even the digital footprints that today's hyper-connected world generates. This transformation raises the possibility that the very cases once deemed impossible may in the future find solutions through tools not yet invented. Such technological progress does more than simply solve individual mysteries. It redefines the strategies for handling missing persons on a global scale. The McCann case could serve as the catalyst for a new wave of international cooperation, where missing person databases are standardized across borders. Algorithms are used to continuously recheck old evidence against new data, and governments invest in technologies designed not for quick resolution, but for patient, decades-long pursuit. The symbolic power of her being found could push policymakers to think generationally about justice, rather than in terms of electoral cycles or immediate results. Her discovery also carries profound implications for the field of trauma psychology. Long-term unresolved loss is one of the most difficult emotional states for humans to endure. Psychologists use the term ambiguous loss to describe the condition of not knowing whether a loved one is alive or dead, present or gone. Families caught in such circumstances live suspended between grief and hope, unable to fully move forward in either direction. The McCann family embodied this condition for 18 years. Their story becomes a case study in survival within ambiguity, showing both the damage that such a state can inflict and the resilience it can foster. For researchers and practitioners in trauma psychology, her return provides rare, tangible evidence of what happens when ambiguous loss transforms into resolution after an extraordinary stretch of time. How does a family adapt when the long-absent person is finally present again? What does healing look like when years of imagined scenarios collide with the reality of reunion? These questions could inform the treatment of other families enduring ambiguous loss, from those of missing persons to families of soldiers missing in conflict. The McCann case may thus expand psychological understanding in ways that reach far beyond its own boundaries. Equally important is the way this discovery intersects with global conversations about childhood vulnerability. Children represent both the most cherished and the most fragile members of societies. The McCann disappearance underscored how quickly childhood innocence can be shattered and how even seemingly safe environments can harbor risks. With her being found, the narrative shifts to one of survivorship and endurance, yet it also forces new scrutiny of systems meant to protect children. Governments and institutions may find themselves compelled to re-examine travel safety protocols, early warning systems for child abduction, and the allocation of resources to prevent such disappearances in the first place. In the context of global inequality, the McCann story also highlights the differences in how missing person cases are treated. While her disappearance commanded international attention, countless other children vanish each year without comparable coverage, resources, or urgency. Her being found could reignite debates about whose stories matter and why. Activists may seize on the event to demand greater equity in how missing persons are prioritized, pushing for mechanisms that ensure that visibility is not dependent on race, class, nationality, or media appeal. In this way, her discovery could act as a springboard for justice that is not only individual, but systemic. The case further forces reflection on the relationship between media and reality. For nearly 2 decades, Madeline existed as an image frozen in time, the iconic photograph of a little girl with wide eyes, reproduced endlessly across newspapers, websites, and television screens. This image became one of the most recognizable symbols of missing childhood in history. With her found, the relationship between image and person undergoes a radical shift. She is no longer simply the girl in the picture. She is a living, evolving individual who has traversed 18 years of unseen experience. This shift raises important questions about media ethics. How does the press adjust to reporting on someone who has been objectified into symbol for so long? What responsibilities do journalists carry to ensure that the real human being is not overshadowed by the cultural myth constructed around her absence? Madeline's discovery forces a reckoning with these questions, potentially setting precedents for how long-term missing persons cases are covered when resolution finally comes. At the same time, the rediscovery challenges the ways in which societies collectively remember. Memory, when it comes to unresolved tragedies, is often sustained by ritual, anniversaries, vigils, campaigns, and public appeals. These rituals keep the memory alive, ensuring that the person is not forgotten. When resolution occurs, those rituals must be transformed. The annual reminders of absence now become commemorations of return. This transformation reshapes cultural memory itself, illustrating how collective remembrance can shift from grief to celebration, from longing to restoration. For communities who invested in the search, this moment validates the years of energy they poured into keeping the case visible. It demonstrates that activism, awareness, and remembrance are not futile acts but can contribute indirectly to eventual outcomes. Communities across the globe may take inspiration from this event, recognizing the power of sustained compassion and solidarity even in the absence of immediate results. Her being found also intersects with political discourses about state responsibility. Governments that supported the search may point to the discovery as proof of their commitment to justice. Critics, on the other hand, may demand to know why it took 18 years, and whether earlier interventions could have produced the same outcome sooner. This tension reflects the larger challenge of governance, balancing the unpredictability of human tragedy with the need for accountability. Madeline's discovery could therefore influence future policies on transparency, funding, and the role of governments in supporting families through long-term crises. In addition, The discovery brings forward philosophical questions about destiny and coincidence. Was her being found the result of human persistence alone? Or was it also shaped by chance alignments, timing, and unpredictable circumstances? Such questions have no definitive answers, yet they form part of the awe and wonder surrounding the case. They remind us that human stories often unfold at the intersection of agency and fate, where choices and accidents combine to shape outcomes that cannot be fully explained. On a personal level for individuals around the world, the discovery may also function as a kind of emotional release. Millions of people carried the weight of her story in some corner of their minds, revisiting it each time a new headline emerged or an anniversary passed. Her being found allows those individuals to finally close the chapter emotionally, to release the tension of not knowing, and to transition from carrying a wound of uncertainty to holding a story of restoration. This collective catharsis illustrates the strange but real bond that can form between strangers and distant tragedies, a bond that shapes the way people understand both suffering and hope. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, leave your comments below and tell us, what are your thoughts on her being found after 18 years? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.